Here we have La Chapelle in France, nearly complete skeleton, a male skeleton, also nicknamed the Old Man, one of the first found. It dates to be about 50,000 years old. And the state of the bones shows that this man was in a lot of pain. The curve in these bones here are not natural. So there's a good chance that this individual is being taken care of. Now we saw this when we talked about Homo erectus, Homo ergaster, the care that this group would have been taking with each other. And we see it reinforced later on here with Neanderthal. At one point that seemed to be something to question until we factor in chimpanzees and other apes and their ability to have lifelong bonds with each other. In evolution, what we're seeing, especially with the nervous system coming in, is the ability to connect with other organisms in our world. First and foremost, in our population. And then second, with other populations. And we see that today with humans. While we have pet dogs, we have pet cats, we have pet horses, we raise cattle, sheep, pigs, goats. We have an interaction with other species. We have that ability to create bonds across the species line. Shanidar in Iraq, 70 to 60,000 years old. This is the first burial to date that was found. This was found prior to Atapuerca, and Atapuerca is speculated to be a burial site. This is a known burial. The skeleton in the ground on the right is a flower burial. This was in a cave, and the amount of pollen that surrounded this skeleton was entirely too high to have it blown into the cave. So it is speculated that people laid flowers down on top of this person, their friend that had passed on. There is also some stone tools in this burial, and it is with the knees bent in the fetal position, like many burials are, prior to coffins and things like that there. Here's another burial. Neanderthals buried their dead. Their burials include grave goods like animal bone and stone tools. They placed the bodies of their dead in a flexed position, in the fetal position. And we see the fetal position here, but when you're in the ground, there is movement. And so it doesn't look the same as when the body was put in the ground. But you can see some stone tools here, some bone. Mousterian tools. This is going to be on the test. There are at least 60 known types of tools made using the Mousterian technology. So we've had the Oldowan tools, Acheulean tools. Now we have the Mousterian tools. These are associated with Neanderthal. This flute, made from a femur of a cave bear that is estimated to be 2 years old on its death. This is dated at 43,000 years old. It's a flute that was found in association with a Neanderthal hearth. When I put this picture up here, I did not think that Neanderthals had the ability to do such things. To make a flute means that your world is very symbolic. You can take a bone and set these holes in it in a way that you can make music, a certain flow of sound, and your intention is to do this is very symbolic. At the time, I thought, if this is in fact a product of Neanderthal, it is the only such artifact found that demonstrates deep symbolic abilities. However, it is not thought that Neanderthal used symbolic expression. But in fact, now it is thought that Neanderthals used symbolic expression. There have been ritual sites in Europe found that have ritual items in them that were definitely associated with Neanderthal. At the time, I thought maybe moderns came through and used this hearth and dropped this flute. But in fact, now I think that Neanderthal had the capability for language, for symbolic thinking, the idea of another world, maybe even beyond this world. Neanderthals survived at a time in the Pleistocene that was extremely difficult to survive. Common climates that went down below 7 degrees, below zero. And while you can't really say they thrived, they did last for a couple 100,000 years. So that's something very, very, that takes a lot of intelligence. Evolution in different climates at similar times, creating different pressures on the processes of evolution. If you look on the left, we see in these two skeletons, Neanderthal, shorter and broader, raised, developing and evolving in a very cold climate. The body becomes shorter and thicker so that the mass of that body can hold in the body temperature better. In Africa, on the right, you have bodies that are taller, with longer limbs to be able to expel the heat that the environment is putting on the body. Compared to modern Homo sapiens. Now, Homo sapiens, we're global now, from about 160,000 years ago to the present. If we use the Herto-Buri find in Ethiopia, which we'll see in a second. We're often told that the modern Homo sapiens are 200,000 years old, and that's probably accurate. In fact, we may be older than that. But the earliest skull found is about 160,000 years old. Our brain average is about 1350 cc's, 1,350 cc's, cubic centimeters, that is, cubic centimeters, cc's. The canine fossa, the MQ 0.9, a distinct reduction in the megadontia quotient and an indentation in the maxilla, where the root of the canine causes a bulge. A high rounded cranium. Modern Homo sapiens develop a chin, but have no retromolar gap. The reduction in the megadontia is certainly due to the use of fire. The lack of need to really digest raw foods, to decimate in our mouth raw foods. This reduced the need for muscles. With the reduction of the need for muscles in that area, then you have a reduction in the bones that hold those muscles. Material culture of archaic humans. Increased complexity of tool use and hunting. Dietary and behavioral changes. High levels of communal cooperation. And post-mortem modifications of body. Modifying the body after death for burial and for preparation to go into the next world. Defined morphologically, not behaviorally, we see anatomically modern humans, cranial rounded dome, so you have the parietal area at the top of the skull and towards the back top of the skull is getting higher. A high forehead, meaning the development of the frontal lobe. Reduction supraorbital torus, the brow ridge above the eyes, is being reduced. And prognosticism is reduced, resulting in a flatter face. Teeth reduction in megadontia, reduction in retromolar gap, and a chin is now present. This is a change in the cranial structure of the bone, and again, no doubt due to how food is now cooked and eaten rather than eaten raw. Anatomically modern humans. Here we have two crania from the Middle East, in Israel. These have pronounced brow ridges, The one on the left lacks a chin. The one on the right does have a bit of a chin. You see a lower top of the crania on the one on the left, and even on the one on the right. But these are still classified as modern Homo sapiens. So there is certainly changes leading to us. Anatomically modern fossils in Africa. They date back 160,000 years. In the Middle East, 110,000 years. In Asia, 70,000 years. Australia, 60,000 years. Europe, 40,000 years. And America's 14,000 years. This is how long modern Homo sapiens have been populating the planet. Transitional Homo sapiens. Crania dating to approximately 110 to 80,000 years ago that have Neanderthal features as well as many modern features were found at skull in the Middle East. Now we also know today that Neanderthal and modern Homo sapiens did mate and have viable fertile offspring. They were genetically close enough to do that. And we do know that modern Homo sapiens and Neanderthal lived in the Middle East. So these could have been the products of joining between modern Homo sapiens and Neanderthal. As you look at these, look at the years from 110,000 to 80,000 and from 100,000 to 90,000, because there will be a question on the test about these next two slides. So we talked about the crania dating approximately 110 to 80,000 years ago. Fossils dating about 100,000 years ago to 90,000 years ago that exhibit some transitional features but share more similarities with anatomically modern humans than archaics like Neanderthal, especially in the presence of a chin. These were found at Fuentes in the Middle East, as well as now. So the ones at skull were found between 110 and 80,000. The one at Fuentes were found between 100 and 90,000. So understand the difference between skull and Fuentes.